Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Sunday, May the 11th. Happy Mother's Day to everybody out there. And let's say hello to our good friend, George Rodriguez. George, happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day. Thank you very much.
Um, Quick second here about our mothers. Do you have any Mother's Day story that you wanted to share?
I think the one that always occurs to me at this time of year when I think of her
Yeah.
is how I was born in public housing. We lived in public housing when we first moved to San Antonio.
Hmm.
And I remember one of the things that she organized, and she was very, very adamant about, was to get young mothers to learn how to take care of their homes.
Oh,
And, in today's world, that seems like something that was very, very needed,
hmm,
even today. I mean, if we could teach more young women how to take care of their homes, how to take care of their kids, how to be clean, I think we'd have fewer problems than what we see.
I would agree with that. I think we used to have a class in school, I remember, called Home Economics. Do you remember
Yes,
that? Remember that?
yes.
I don't know if they still teach that, but that I
Well,
guess that
probably
was
not. It
the
sounds too sexist.
yeah, but that's what I thought was the purpose of that class. I think my favorite Mother's Day story. I have so many, but just one quick one that I can relate in the time we have. I remember we first came to the United States, and we came in September, and of course the baseball season was ending, and then we had winter, and then the baseball season started again. And I remember it was Good Friday, and I wanted to watch the baseball game on TV. And my mother said, "You mean they play baseball on Good Friday up here?" And I said, "Yes, they do, actually. Yeah, they do. They play baseball on Good Friday." And she was like, really, she couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe it because, when we were growing up, Good Friday was this day of solemn day. You didn't do anything other than just kind of, really didn't do anything.
It would
Uh,
be very interesting to see or hear our parents' response to an American pope.
that is fascinating. That is fascinating. What would be their response?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think a lot of them. You have to wonder. I mean, how many of them would have believed it? I mean, if you go back 40 years,
Especially one from Chicago.
yes, and you you go back 40 years, and I don't know, you go back, let's say to, I don't know, 1970, that would be 50 years. If you had said to somebody, we're going to have a black president, we're going to have an American pope, where I mean, those things were in a way kind of outside the radar. They
Yeah.
were not things that, and certainly a pope, an American pope. But I'm hoping that he's a White Sox fan. Did you hear about that?
Yes.
He's a big White Sox fan. Which, of course, this year, for those who follow baseball, the White Sox are the worst team in baseball. Yeah, they're just a horrible team, and hopefully they're rebuilding. You have hope that they are. But in fact, I've got a post coming out about this tomorrow in which I say that maybe now that the Pope is a White Sox fan, White Sox ownership will get on a horse here and really rebuild the White Sox.
Yeah.
Because what a shame it would be for the Pope's team to be the worst team in baseball.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that this is not only going to be good for the Catholic Church, but it's going to be good
For the White
for the
Sox.
White Sox. Yeah, I mean, I'm really hoping it is. So that maybe,
Maybe for the Chicago Bears too.
yeah, wouldn't it, Villanova too? I guess he's a big basketball fan
Yeah.
as well because he went there. But wouldn't it be just, I mean, you talk about things that would be shocking to think about. How about this one? The White Sox are in the World Series, not this year, but let's say sometime in the next 5 years. The White
Oh,
Sox are in the World Series, opening day in Chicago, World Series, game one. And who throws the first pitch?
yeah, really. That would be something.
That would
That
be
would be
something.
very,
Yeah,
very.
the Pope goes out there and goes on the mound
They would
and throws.
they would accuse the White Sox of having outside help.
Yeah, they would accuse the White Sox of having some extra help. Yeah, you're right. Some divine influence on the outcome. But I mean that would be great. I am happy, although as I mentioned in my post coming out tomorrow, I'll send you a copy of it when it comes out. That our church right now, the Catholic Church, there's some conflicts in the church between really the more traditional Catholics like me, where I am in that corner, and all these modern people that want to modernize the church, but I'm not exactly sure what they want to do with it. And so I just hope that this is a man who, I mean, doesn't necessarily go one way or the other, but just kind of sticks to promoting the faith and realizing how important it is to, the Pope is a very important figure. And I just hope he stays away from all these little cute issues like climate change and even immigration. I wish he would stay out of it.
Yes.
I wish he would stay out of it. It's not a good topic for him to be getting into. And if he is going to get into immigration, what he should do is come down hard on the countries that are creating the immigration problem,
that are not taking care of their own people.
Exactly. I mean, take a look at some of these countries that, you know,
that are facing them out, that are making life unbearable for their citizens.
Exactly. And in a way, they're growing more and more dependent on these remittances. I mean, look at Mexico. $65 billion are going to Mexico every year. I mean, that's a lot of money. It's more money than the oil revenue. It's more money than the tourism revenue. And this is just easy money going into Mexico every month. $5 billion, $65 billion a year. So hopefully he'll come down hard on those countries who've created this problem. You know, it's one thing for political asylum. It's another thing for economic asylum. And I look at many of these people, and every day they seem more like economic
refugees. More and more they are economic refugees. And, you know, the only thing that their countries are doing them, it's exporting their poverty.
That's it. And instead of doing something to help them, they're actually just saying, hey, you know, just hit the road.
Where's the responsibility of the home country? I mean,
well, there isn't any from what we can see. Yeah. But more and more they're just sending them to the U.S. and say, hey, don't forget to wire back some money when you get a job. I mean, that's what they're doing. All right. Well, happy Mother's Day to everyone, especially mothers like mine who couldn't believe that we would play baseball on Good Friday. That is one of my favorite Mother's Day stories. All right, let's begin with these confrontations, apparently between some Democrats and ICE detention centers. I'm not sure if they're ICE detention centers or if they're just detention centers, but
they are ICE. They are
ICE. Okay.
ICE is holding the criminal aliens that have been picked up, and they are holding them at these places where they are temporarily holding them until they are removed from the United States.
Okay. Now, one of these places is in New Jersey, because I believe the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, was arrested, right? And then you had a couple of New Jersey representatives, I believe, who confronted ICE. Look, I thought, I don't know, maybe George, maybe things have changed, but I thought that when you assaulted or prevented a law enforcement officer from doing his job, that you had a problem. At least that's what I thought it was supposed to be, George.
Well, I did too. Unfortunately, what is happening is that the Democrats who have been justifying their civil disobedience, as they call it, who have been justifying it, claim again that it is an unjust law, and therefore there is a moral obligation on their part to disobey. Now, one thing is to disobey, one thing is to protest. But in this case, these people rushed into the compound, and not only that, but in some cases, you've got film of some of them actually attacking the ICE as well as the security guards to prevent them from getting in. It is inexcusable. It is absolutely ridiculous that anybody tries to justify that behavior. And if you're going to behave in a chaotic, riotous manner, then where is the limitation, particularly if you are supposed to be held at a higher standard because you are an elected official?
What is it, George, in your opinion, that is driving this madness where you have I mean, the people that ICE is holding in many of these places are not nice people. I mean, I can understand if they were political prisoners. They're not political prisoners. I mean, I know something about political prisoners. My father's cousin spent 15 years in a political prison in Cuba. So I know a little bit about political prisoners. And this is nothing like that. These are generally bad people, criminal behavior people who we're holding with the intention, I suppose, of deporting them, like you indicated. But what is it about these Democrats who've all of a sudden they've decided to go out and fight for really not very nice people, like the guy in El Salvador and some of these? I mean, what the heck is going on with that party? It just makes no sense.
Well, I mean, it is the international form, in my opinion, of the civil rights disobedience that we have seen through Black Lives Matter. And I mean, Black Lives Matter has consistently defended criminals, defended people that were clearly in the wrong. Well, here we've got now on an international scale. These people, first of all, are illegal aliens. That's number one. Right. But number two, they all have criminal records. From the very, very beginning, my friend Tom Holman made it very, very clear that there was in fact, I worked with Tom on developing a priority list. And the priority was, first of all, to all of those individuals who are illegal aliens who had committed crimes. The worse the crime, at the front of the line. And now what we've got is these people, these Democrats, screaming and yelling resistance. And resistance is aimed at Trump, anything that Trump does. But in this case, it is aimed at keeping people that in the first place they let in without permission.
Right. Yeah. And again, it's all about Trump. But, you know, I was reading, the other day that under President Obama, 3 million people were deported, and like 80% of them never got a trial. They were simply, told, hey, you got to leave, and the bus leaves tomorrow at 3, and we want you in the bus.
There was no due process.
Exactly. There was no due process, or at least the understanding was that the due process was the fact that you were in the country illegally and you got a letter or something saying you have to leave.
That's right.
And that was the due process. But this idea that everybody has to get a trial, it's ridiculous. That has never been the way we deported
Imagine
people.
how long that would take. Just imagine how long that would take.
It would take.
If you're going to appeal.
And who's going to pay for their defense lawyers?
Oh, that's the other thing.
That's the other thing. I mean, I don't think they have the money to.
No.
And I don't think a bunch of lawyers are going to work for free. So, I mean, you have this dilemma where these people, and it's all about Trump. You're exactly right. This is all about Trump. This is all about opposing Trump. Anything that Trump does, they have to oppose. And I think it's, George, I think it's getting old. I mean, I
don't see how this is a winning strategy, at least for common America, for Main Street America. I don't see how this is a winning strategy.
No, it's not. And in fact, Mark Halperin, who is in my opinion, one of the best journalists around. He used to work with Newsweek, but now he's doing these shows on YouTube, fantastic shows that he does. He's got a huge audience. And the other day he spoke about what is happening with the Democrat Party. And he says he's been conducting all these, interviews with Democrats who are scared to death about all of this because they're saying my party is not looking at itself in the mirror, doesn't seem to understand why it lost. And then you have this ridiculous thing of President Biden going on The View. And when they ask him why Kamala Harris lost, he says, oh, it's because racism and sexism. I mean, that's old. I mean, how many times are they supposed to play that game? I mean, she didn't lose because of sexism and racism. She lost because she was a horrible candidate who, by the way, was connected to Biden, who obviously seems favorable. But I mean, come on, she didn't. And then on top of that, she wouldn't answer questions from the media. They protected her, but they keep living. And let me tell you something else too that Mark Halperin brought up. And I may have sent you the video. I don't remember if I did or not, but it's about a 6 to 10 minute video on YouTube. I'll find it and send it to you. Maybe I did, but I'll just go ahead and send it again. And Mark Halperin says that he talks to a lot of Democrats, serious Democrats. These are people who want their party to succeed. And they're saying, we don't, we're not addressing problems like why are men walking away from the Democrat Party? Why aren't men voting Democrat? Why are we now losing Hispanic men? I think I mentioned this in our last conversation, George, but I'll repeat it or say it if I didn't say it before. I just read that 53% of Hispanic men voted for Trump.
Yeah.
That is a huge figure. I mean, you're talking about, this. Remember 20 years ago when Obama won the presidency? Was it that long ago? Well, 15,
Yeah.
whatever it was, back in 2008. When he won the presidency, and this Professor Teixeira from Texas wrote that book saying that Hispanics were going to turn the Democrat Party, it were going to be like the emerging majority. I mean, basically, they were going to become the majority party because the Hispanics were going to vote Democrat. Well, that hasn't happened. That hasn't happened at all. And one of the reasons it hasn't happened, George, is because of men. Men are simply, and so I mean, they don't want to address, but like if why do you think, I've got a couple of thoughts on that, but give me why do you think men in particular are not voting Democrat? Why do you think that is?
Well, first of all, I think that as normal, and I will use that word, which sends liberals up the wall. But as normal people, we know that men cannot compete with women in sports. That's number one. I mean, that's the most obvious one that's there. We also know that men cannot have babies. Okay, we know that men have a different role in life, in biology, than women. I mean, that is very, very clear, and that is something that the Democrats just refuse to accept. The second thing that I see that's very, very clear is that while we may be of Hispanic descent, you and I, we are Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And as Americans, we see the undermining that is going on by an open border, by a weak military, by weak international relations. We see that, and that affects us, and we don't like it.
No, I agree. And certainly the breakdown of law and order, the breakdown of the family.
Another one.
Which is really, and what you said about men playing in women's sports. I mean, I don't know of anything more repulsive as a man than seeing, I think it was up in wherever it was, the state of Washington, I believe, or Connecticut, one of those states, where a guy, George, a man who had finished in number 172 in the men's category. He was number 172 with the other men. He runs as a woman and he rewrites all their records. So now all the records in either Connecticut or Washington, whatever it was, doesn't matter, but one of these blue areas, all of the records now in track and field were broken by a man running as a woman. How can that be good for those young women who many of them are running for scholarships?
Exactly. It is illogical. I mean, imagine in a couple of years, a university having all transgender basketball team,
right?
A transgender women's basketball team. They would win the national championship,
right? Or
dominate.
Even the women's professional league.
Yeah, and if that's the case, imagine what the other teams would then do.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, I think that is one big thing that I think upsets men, because we are, after all, fathers, and we have sisters and we have daughters. And I think I
have grandnieces that are playing sports, that are in gymnastics. I think it would be a farce to have those girls compete against boys.
Well, and remember what happened in the Olympics, where you had this man beating up this young woman from Italy, and the woman at one point said, "I can't go on." And I think that has something to do with it.
Circumstances, the police would be called and the man would be arrested.
That's what
gold medal.
That's what level-headed people would say. Yeah, exactly. So, but they do, and then the other thing too that Halperin was saying, when is the party going to to look at itself in the mirror and actually see why we have these problems. Instead of always playing the race card and the sexist card and the Trump card, when are they going to say, you know what, let's put that aside for a second and let's look at what's really going on here. I mean, the fact of the matter is, for all they're telling us that Trump is dropping in the polls, he's nowhere near as down as they are. I mean, they're down to like 29% in some of these approval polls, whereas Trump, I guess, is in the 40s, and it's questionable where he's at, but he's certainly a lot higher than they are, George. So it's just remarkable to me. By the way, speaking of our favorite Dallas Congresswoman, Representative Crockett, she apparently was in an interview, and I'm going to paraphrase what she said, but she said that the Democrats are getting ready for 2028, and they want to run a nice little clean white man. So she was saying it's going to be Shapiro, it's going to be the senator from Arizona.
I can't imagine who it is. I mean, I'm trying to think of a good, clean white boy in the Democratic Party right now, and I don't know.
But I mean, can you imagine anybody else saying something like that?
Exactly. I mean, talk about racist.
Yeah, this lady seems to get away with anything she wants to say. I mean,
racist.
It's absolutely incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Well, let's go to another topic. Got a couple more to get into tonight before our time runs out. It looks like the Democrats have declared war on Representative Cuellar down in South Texas in your neighborhood. Yeah. What's the latest, George?
Well, the latest was that they backed off. They are not going to try to censor him. There was a radical woman in Laredo, in Webb County, who was pushing to have the Democratic Party censor him because he has opposed Democrats going down to El Salvador, and he, of course, has opposed abortion. So those two things apparently are key to the Democrats, and she was circulating a petition to have him censored. Well, apparently the new Democrat chairman of Texas, a guy, a white male, went and kiboshed that and said that they are not going to do that after all. So apparently that has been withdrawn. I know that there are at least two potential candidates, Republican candidates that are going to be running against him. He is very vulnerable. People in Laredo and in Webb County are very dissatisfied and disappointed with him. And they are very dissatisfied and disappointed with the Democratic Party. So Webb County went for Trump. It's not looking good at all for him. It's not looking good at all for the Democrats.
Right. Now, the one of the Republicans who I believe is running in that district or talking about running in that district is Myra Flores, right?
Correct.
Running against him.
Yes.
And the other one, who ran against him the last time?
Last time was a gentleman named Furman.
Right, who did a pretty good job, if I recall.
He did a very, very good job. He won the primary against Myra, and he did pretty good. But now there is also a third possible, and that could be the current Webb County judge. And a Webb County judge, for those that don't know, a county judge is the highest ranking local elected official in the county. And Tano Tijerina, who, in my opinion, really has he is a homegrown candidate. They love him. He has won twice re-election. He is, I think he has a real potential for winning. So you've got three candidates, very good candidates, lined up against.
Yeah. He has to overcome a Democrat challenge. Remember the last time it was really tough.
He will have a very radical one, I guarantee.
Yeah, because the last time it was 50-50. If you remember the last time in that primary, he barely got out the last time.
Yeah, he won
out of that primary.
34 points, I think it was.
Yeah. And is there any chance that he would switch parties? Cuellar, that is?
I kind of doubt it. His roots are very, very deep in the Democratic Party, which includes his brother, who is the county sheriff,
Right.
who is a Democrat, and his sister, who once held the position of county tax assessor as a Democrat, and then was defeated. And his family roots are very, very deep in the Democratic Party. I really kind of don't think that he will. But even if he did, Silvio, even if he did change parties, I don't think he'd have a chance.
Okay. Yeah, so he's a little bit like that senator from West Virginia, whose name escapes me at the moment.
Manchin?
Senator Manchin, yeah. Who many people thought he would switch, but he basically said the same thing. Look, I'm a Democrat. I've been a Democrat all my life. I can't just switch.
Yeah. And the reality, again, particularly in the case of Cuellar, is that, I just don't think that he would be embraced or believed.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is interesting because I remember Cuellar a couple of years ago when we had all this immigration crisis on the border, that he went on TV and he said, look, this is insane. They should have kept him in Mexico, because something he said that always stuck with me. Cuellar said, 90% of these people are going to be rejected by the judge because they're economic refugees.
Exactly.
And that has turned out to be pretty close to true.
Pretty close.
Yeah. Well, one last topic, George. This is really interesting, this last one. There is talk of building a city, what is in essence a Muslim city. They call it Muslim-centric city. I don't know exactly where it is. I think it's around the Dallas area, or at least in North Texas. And it's a city where, I guess it's a Muslim city, where they're going to have a big mosque, a lot of living facilities. And, when I first heard about it, I never thought they could get away with it. I mean, it's one thing to, for example, Utah. Everybody knows that in Utah, the Mormons are the largest religious group, but they don't discriminate against other groups. I mean, it's not like they're saying you have to be Mormon to live in Utah. I mean, they just happen to be, or for that matter, the Catholics in Louisiana or whatever it may be. But in this case, I always thought that this city would run into the Department of Justice, which I believe they have. They have already, yeah. So it doesn't look like it's going to happen.
No, what you've got there is a replication of what has happened in Europe and in other places, mostly in Europe. When I visited England a few years ago, when I visited Europe a few years ago, there were many neighborhoods that had sprouted out all over the European continent in major cities, neighborhoods that had become Muslim-centric. That meant that in that community, you could not do certain things that went against the religion of the majority of the people. And in that case, for example, one of the outrageous things to me was that you couldn't walk a dog because dogs were considered unclean and they didn't want them walking where they walked. There were occasions when you couldn't, if there was a high holy day, you couldn't do anything. You couldn't walk. You couldn't have a party. You couldn't, so there were, these communities have really grown in most of Europe. And now this was what the idea was here, that you were going to have a community where Sharia law, where the culture would dominate, and anybody that didn't live there or could not live there, that didn't respect the religion. And that's that's where the problem is. Again, you should be able to live wherever you want, as long as you respect your neighbor, but why respect your religion?
Yeah, I think that would run into trouble with the First Amendment if they did that. But so it looks right now like it has been stopped.
Let's to me, I would hope so, because it does fly in the face of the First Amendment, and it's not discriminatory to not allow it. It is that you are here the Constitution is the ultimate rule of law. And if you're going to allow religion to be the rule of law, imagine what we're going to look like.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I have no problem if they want to build a mosque, and
Exactly.
a lot of people want to live there. That's fine. I mean, that's completely within the boundaries. But I think it's when you go beyond that, which is what people were afraid. By the way, you're talking about Europe, and I read the other day, about 3 days ago, that in the schools of Belgium, Brussels, I think, is the big city there. In the public schools in Brussels, 88% of the kids in primary school and junior high were not born in Belgium.
Yeah. Open borders. That's what open borders is about.
Well, it's a perfect storm of open borders and no reproduction. I mean, there's no reproduction and open borders. That's what happens. But think of Belgium, what it's going to look like in 20 years. I mean, when you have that kind of that kind of a radical change in your demographics, and it's also true in Vienna, Austria. They have similar problems in their public schools. So I mean,
and Denmark have had those problems.
Yeah, in Denmark they have, and you look at some of these pictures that come from Europe and these streets and all of that, and you go, my gosh, this is certainly not the Europe that I remember, in postcards or whatever. Well, George, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, happy Mother's Day. Was there a big celebration in San Antonio for Mother's Day? Any big parades?
Not that I know of. I mean, everybody. I mean, I know here in my neighborhood, I can smell the barbecue. So imagine that they are happy.
Well, it's funny how all of us remember or want to remember our mother's cooking.
Yes.
I guess that's what everybody does. I know it's very hard to get a restaurant table in our area on Mother's Day. It's impossible. You got to make reservations with plenty of time. But George, as always, thank you so much for your time. By the way, you're taking some trips. You're giving some speeches, aren't you?
Yeah.
Did I hear that right? When are you going to be speaking down there?
In fact, I'm going to New Orleans
right.
In 2 weeks. I will be in Dallas. I'll call you.
Please
I'll be in Dallas again. I plan to sit down with Jerry Jones and have a serious discussion.
Okay. Well, he may hire you. He needs a quarterback. He needs a third string quarterback, and you and I could very easily do that job. I mean, all we have to do is we just sit there with the board, and we have the microphone on, and we tell the quarterback. Yeah, so you and I could do that job very easily. But yeah, call me when you're in Dallas, and we'll try to get together. And as always, thank you so much, and good luck with all your trips and all your speeches. And thank you as always for your time.
You got it. Take care.
All right, our good friend George Rodriguez down in South Texas. Again, Mother's Day, always a big day to remember our mothers. And I hope you had a chance to do something with your family today. You know what I find interesting about Mother's Day, that at the Mass, and it's nice that they do this. I think every Mass does this. They ask all the mothers and grandmothers and stepmothers and mothers-to-be and all of that to get up, and they all get a nice applause. I think that's cool. I think that's really cool. And so they probably do that, I suppose, in other churches as well. But they do it at our church, and I think it's always really cool. Well, thank you so much for listening. Again, this is Silvio Cantu in Dallas. Our thanks to George for joining us today, and happy Mother's Day, and we'll talk to you the next time. Bye-bye, everybody.